A pinch of salt, a march to the sea. Some 10,000 men stand on the Indian shore of the Arabian Sea. Criminals, every one of them. But they haven't done anything except produce a small handful of salt from along the shoreline. In the coming months, millions will join them, and even though the British will crack down hard, not one will raise their hand in violence. For together, just like the salt that they have gathered, they can change the world just by being there. They are the people of the Dandi March. My name is Justin Woods, and I'm joined today by my fellow co-hosts Colum Coleman and Aaron Gilpin. And today we are going to be talking about the Dandi March, one of the greatest and most courageous stories coming out of any of Britain's colonies.
Other than the American Revolution?
Yep.
I think this is even better because it was peaceful.
Yep.
It
Yeah.
didn't last, 10 years?
Yeah, pacifism.
The British
Hey,
is
listen,
one
the
weakness.
current situation of our country lets me make these jokes now.
Yep.
Yes, so we are going to
Gandhi.
India.
It is like slapping someone with kindness.
I mean, hey, they got independence out of all the after everything, so.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as some of you may have guessed, today's topic is the Dandi March, also known as the Salt March, and it was a non-violent protest led by Gandhi, and we're gonna really get into
Is this
just
his
what the
first
hell is
protest? Is
happening.
this like big claim to fame?
This is his big one. I think this is his one of his first ones, at least his first major ones.
Was this before or after he got arrested?
I think this
is
was
what gets him. This is what gets him arrested. Actually, we're
yeah,
going
and
to get into
afterwards
exactly how and why the British do that.
he starts developing nuclear technology because it turns out the system kicked over and turned the
Yeah.
friendly value into a unfriendly value.
Yes. Yes. Baba Yetu, everyone. Baba Yetu.
For those of you who
Uh,
don't know, they're referencing the video game Sid Meier's Civilization.
Which is
it was a
wonderful
bug that
video
they
game
ended up
franchise.
keeping because it was so funny.
It's not a bug, it's a feature.
It's a feature now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a
Fortunately,
25-year-old
for
joke
us,
at this point, I think.
This Gandhi is in the year 1930, and nukes haven't been invented yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The Dandi March is a month-long affair from March 12th to April 6th of 1930, and it begins in Sabarmati Ashram, and it goes all the way to Dandi.
How far
And
away is that? How long is that?
240
about 240
miles.
freedom miles.
Yeah. It is not a short walk whatsoever, which is why it took the better part of a month to do.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
a lot of people just to walk too, yeah.
And also, when you break it down, that's a lot of miles to cover. 240 is like almost 10 miles a day.
Oh my God, the logistics must have been a nightmare.
Yeah. Which is doable. 10 miles a day is doable for
It's doable,
I
yeah.
it's
will
easily
walk
done.
10 miles a day, and I will walk 240 more.
Yeah.
But you're getting a group of people to start marching 10 miles a day. Like you had to prepare.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Otherwise, it's gonna suck.
Gandhi did prepare. His starting point is not chosen at random. Ashram was a religious center near the city of Ahmedabad. I apologize for a number of pronunciations that will be happening in this video. And he chooses to start here for religious reasons. It's a religious retreat. He's putting a spiritual tone on what he's about to do.
Oh. So
Also,
this
it's
is
good to make sure you're looking holy right before you do something that's probably going to get you beaten by the government.
It's a great way to almost ensure a level of martyrdom.
Yeah.
Of look at me, I'm being persecuted because of my strong beliefs in this one cause and this other God and this God, you know?
religion is usually often
Weaponized in that
used
way.
as the reason for revolutions or any sort of conflict or the start of one. Because it does give legitimacy in a way, because I'm not doing this because I want to, I'm doing this because I have to.
Yeah.
Because my religious code tells me I need to.
And he keeps
If
to
that
it
is the case
a-
for Gandhi, I don't know if that
yeah.
is.
Well, he keeps to it a little bit. Like you can look into this any way you can. Gandhi's motivations aren't always clear. We only really have what he told other people he wanted. So we don't, there's no like private memoir of Gandhi where he's doing the secret history of the Dandi March.
Oh, so there is he. I would have thought he. I guess I really didn't know that much about Gandhi.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, but he does kind of keep to these themes with his choice of destination. Dandi is a nothing town. It's not very important, it's not very big.
Hmm.
But what it is it's on the coast of the Arabian Sea. It's visible. And that's what he needs. It's this humble little town that's going to defy the British Empire.
Hmm.
That is a ballsy thing to do, honestly.
Yeah, because this isn't Mumbai or New Delhi. This isn't a major metropolis, something that's big and powerful in its own right,
This
standing
is
up to the British.
this
This
is
is
straight
a
up
little
grassroots.
coastal town. Yeah,
Very good strategy from what it seems. He was a good
yeah. This is
strategist.
yeah. No, this is very clever, and it's one of the earliest acts of civil disobedience to gain large scale recognition. This becomes not just nationwide news across the Indian subcontinent or across the British Empire, it becomes an international story. Everyone looks at this and sees that, yeah, consent of the governed is a real force. And the British, for probably the first time in their history, are forced to reckon with the fact that people can consent to not be governed.
The best part about this, in my mind, is not just that they chose this alternate way to basically defy the British, but it's the fact that India does have a significantly larger population than the British. Granted, they were not nearly as well armed, but if there were to be a bloody conflict, they would have the manpower necessary to fight it, but they chose a different route. And that to me shows a lot about the character.
I mean, if you think about it, at least at least up until the British come, after like the British start taking over, it's pretty bloody in general. I mean, think about how many people ended up dying growing cash crops while famines were going on.
Yeah, at least when
Uh,
India was ruled by the warlords, they all died fighting each other.
I mean, yeah, I'm not saying it was like better or anything. I'm just saying like just because someone came in and said, "I'm establishing peace," or you know what I mean, doesn't mean it's gonna be good.
Yeah, no, no. The was what was the British system? India grows opium that the British sell at gunpoint to China in return for porcelain and tea.
Exactly.
It's just like, yeah, welcome to hell. But yeah, Dundee does have one thing in it that makes it very important for this march, and that is it has salt. Because Gandhi has gone out of his way to find what the one law that he thinks will piss off the British the most if you defy it. That the most people can get behind throwing things at the British over.
the British and their taxes. That's that he did read American history and went,
Yes,
you
he did.
know, that would really piss them off.
Yeah. Yep. See, Gandhi is doing this to protest a 50-year-old law called the Salt Tax of 1882. And this British law is the definition of racial discrimination.
Oh my God. Of course it
I
is.
know that's a buzzword to throw around, especially on the internet, but like there's there's no two ways about this.
The fun fact in my mind is this is the exact same reason the Americans revolted, was because they had a law known as the salt tax, which basically banned Indians from collecting or selling salt, and that they had to buy the salt from the British merchants who carried it, and the British merchants would place the tax on the consumer. If that sounds very similar, that is the exact same basis of the tax acts in America that led to the colonists throwing tea in the harbor.
Yeah.
The British
Britain
basically said, we are going to tax you on the tea that we sell you.
Yeah, Britain is 100 years older and absolutely not wiser.
You know, the British Empire was one of the widest expansive. I'm not going to say the greatest because they pulled a lot of shit like this, and it was effectively just subjugation. I mean, they were just extracting money. This was their cash cow. But if they had just done things a little more better, a little more organized, a little more coherent, they could have. I think they could have lasted a lot longer.
Oh,
I mean,
they
let's
were
face it.
very organized. They were just very mean.
Yeah, there's a point where you can like. There's just a point, especially since like colonial India starts under, you know, the East India
Corporate
Company's
rule.
control. The entire vibe was set from there. The goal is profit. Everyone else is just getting in the way,
Well,
or
You
if
know,
they're not actively helping.
it's
So,
all expendable.
and cruelty is
exactly.
the point. That's kind of the basis of this. That tends to be in a lot of these subjugating societies, is that cruelty is the point. You keep a population scared, you keep a population down, they're less likely to stand up against you out of fear of reprisal.
Also, people will just do it because you dared defy it. Like you did fair, you dared to defy them, so therefore they're going to be cruel. Kind of like how the Romans were like, listen, if you just accept our rule, no one has to die. You get to be freemen.
Yeah,
If you say no, though, we will be killing all of you and enslaving your women and children.
yeah. Britain just said both doors lead to the same places here.
Yeah, there's like the illusion of choice. And it's the British being like, kind rule, cruel rule,
Why not
least
high rule?
exploitation.
It's the they're the same picture meme. But yeah, the British here for the past 50 years had absolutely not been abusing the monopoly they now had on salt.
Oh, yeah.
Um, the British government would heavily tax the salt. They'd put the burden of the tax on the consumer, and salt prices could be wildly variable because of it. If the salt merchant decided he didn't like you, you paid more. If the salt merchant just felt like he needed an extra anything, you paid more.
This kind it's kind because I guess we should probably clarify that in this part of the world also, uh using straight currency isn't always, or like, like haggling is a very important part in this, in the art of the I guess art of the trade, out here. So when like when Colum's saying like he might charge you a little bit more, he's probably going to, because there are no like set prices a lot of times.
No, and what are you going to do? Not buy my product? Well,
Yeah,
then we're
especially
going
when
to
you
hit.
need it.
Yeah.
It is salt. Salt is a daily necessity for most Indians' diet at this time.
Also, like salt is just important to like development in general. That's why we have uh like different types of minerals in our water supply. It's because if we don't have it, we have to start getting it from other places.
Yeah, but basically, what the British are doing is they're giving the population of India scurvy and then waving the cure around and offering it to only the highest bidder.
Well, also not to mention that the
God,
British are probably the only nation on earth that doesn't use salt as a seasoning to the point where it becomes a staple in most diets.
no, they did use salt the British did in fact use that salt. The problem is in the 60s they realized it was giving them all kidney failure.
Yeah. The yeah. One of the interesting things is there were two prices in a lot of places for salt, and that price was determined as by whether or not the merchant judged you to be from the homeland or not. Because remember, salt
Oh,
tax only applies to Indians. Salt sold or possessed between good, upstanding white British people, not taxed.
God
It's
love some
only
good
if
old
you give
flavor
it to the
racism.
savage.
They really. Oh my.
Yep.
What was the point of this? What was the point of that tag? What other than
Oppression
really just to
and
say
profit.
I
Oppression
really,
and profit.
it just makes me think of the Family Guy meme with Peter, and they had like the color chart of whether or
Oh
not, yeah,
Oh,
no.
the safe,
The
safe,
terrorist thing
maybe, and
chart.
dangerous.
yes.
Oh god, that's probably what they did,
But in
honestly.
this
That
case, it was
is,
the
British.
salt
yep,
tax.
yep. Like I said, this law is the definition of racial discrimination.
I
It really
guarantee you.
is.
I guarantee you in the Jim Crow South, they probably would have come up with something like this if they could have. Like that's this kind of shit I would hear like in a history class for like the for like Reconstruction era, where like they tried to prevent black people from buying nice things by taxing them specifically more.
Yeah.
Yep,
That's exactly what that sounds like.
yep, yep. So Gandhi sees his people are in a pretty bad situation. They're getting pinched in a really unreasonable way. So he decides to embark on a massive movement uh, with the Dandi March. He uses it to launch what he calls the Satyagraha, which is Gandhi's big nonviolence, peaceful protest, civil disobedience movement. This is this is the jumping off point for his big thesis that puts him on the world stage as a spiritual leader.
It,
Just a notable figure in general.
Yeah.
it's kind of cool to me just because one of the things that really brought this march together was something as simple as salt. Something that was so basic, such a fundamental key component of life, that he was able to unify a large group of people behind, and almost to the point where I don't think it would get the national attention that it normally would have had it been something completely different.
Yeah. That is true. When Gandhi goes to plan this movement, he meets with other agitators. And initially, his proposal that they focus on the salt tax is considered wildly controversial. It's regarded as a bad idea.
Controversial?
Yeah, the other leaders that he meets with to pull this off initially oppose him, stating that the salt tax is a minor offense. The goal of these protests is supposed to be the independence movement of India. How does repealing this one tax bring about the nation's independence? How does that win them freedom?
I mean, you
It
got to
is a
think about it. Like a landslide begins with one single rock. A march
well,
of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
but also India is not a culturally unified group. There are so many different groups that exist within India. Like we'll use the terms like Hindus or like Hindu or in like Indians, but that's not entirely correct because Muslims live in India. There are
Sikhs,
constant
Punjabi,
like a ton of different smaller
Tamil.
cultural groups that don't really identify as like what we might think of like as Indian.
And that is actually Gandhi's big point. The salt tax is the one visible law that actively decreases the quality of life for everyone living in India. And it will, Gandhi knows he can bring in the Hindu Indian population. He knows he can do that. He knows he has that sway. He knows that with these people they can make a statement. But if they don't make it a statement that all these other groups can get behind, the movement will be seen as ethnocentric and it will lose momentum. People will break away. People won't, that could join, won't join. And you won't have that weight of numbers that you need to pull off peaceful coercion, shall we call it.
Basically, he has to it was a way to convince everyone
Yeah.
to at least fight for one cause because if they can show that they won at least one thing, or at least made a statement that they could all get together and stand behind, it leads to more.
Yeah, and it proves that this movement, that this uh, satyagraha is in the interest of all the peoples of India, not just the people of my temple or the people of my city.
And it's
It's
also in a rural area, you're showing support for a group of people that don't often get represented, like, or at least don't often feel represented.
Yep.
So that's a good one, especially since a lot of these people, I mean, they're just surviving, and you're offering them a attempt at hope.
Yep. And in order to solidify this movement and get it off the ground on the right foot, Gandhi has to define what it's going to mean if you march with him. And to do that, he sets up his three principles: truth, nonviolence, and self suffering. What you're doing has to be true, it has to be honest. You have to believe in it. It has to, you can't be manipulating things. It's that level of transparency. The nonviolence part is the most famous part. You can't threaten people, you can't hurt people for disagreeing with you or for trying to stop you. And self-sacrifice is kind of the back end of that coin. You have to be willing to accept that the enemy will use violence against you, that you will suffer harm. You may lose your job. You may be attacked. You may be imprisoned. You have to be willing to allow that to happen to you. Because Gandhi is not interested in someone who punches back.
Hmm. I mean, I
Gandhi is interested in when is someone who gets punched and looks at the other guy and says, "Did that make you feel strong?"
Is that all you've got?
or just like, do you feel better now? Did
Yeah.
anything change?
Yeah.
It's almost worse when someone doesn't fight back too.
I mean, I generally personally believe that like defending yourself is totally valid. I don't believe in throwing the first punch. I mean, I don't believe in throwing the first punch in a sense that like, you're just angrily swinging, you know. If you're gonna throw the first punch, you better make sure they don't come back up. That's generally my vibe when it comes to stuff like that.
Don't start a fight, just end it.
In
I
a
mean,
way, yeah.
you also got to think of the humanistic aspect too. I briefly mentioned it before, but if you do quote unquote make yourself a martyr, then you have a lot more of a reason for people to get behind your cause. When they see the cruel treatment towards someone who is being peaceful, it doesn't make you look at them very positively. You don't look at it in a good light. You go, "Ooh, that was a bit excessive. Maybe we shouldn't do that."
Exactly. It's a way of saying like, why would you hurt someone who's unarmed like that? Why would you use such an excessive amount of force against somebody who is just just protesting in a sense of like, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm just standing here. I'm just existing doing this.
Yeah, no,
It's
that's
kind of
a
funny because it challenges the British too and elicits an extreme response because, again, choosing something so minor, you're basically saying, are you really getting upset about something as small as a salt tax?
yeah, and it's
Like we just want to be able to own salt, and here you are pointing a gun to my head for wanting to be able to have a fair price at salt.
yeah, it's provoking an excessive and seemingly irrational response. A good analogy for this is the Boston Massacre, of all things.
Mhm.
In the Boston Massacre, British troops gunned down civilians in the street because someone allegedly threw an egg at one of them.
I thought it was a snowball.
Could have been a snowball, might have been a snowball, but basically, you got someone let's say it's snowball. Someone threw a snowball at you, and you decided to fire 2 rounds of lead into the crowd, your entire regiment.
I mean, it's not like we don't see that happen today anyway.
Don't start there.
I mean, it's true about any sort of protest. You see that at a lot of Vietnam protests, a lot of modern day ones, where you try to elicit a strong arm response from the oppressing group, and it's just almost guaranteed bad publicity for them, a bad look, and it's a rallying point.
I mean, like, really, I mean, but genuinely, though, how are you really going to be like, well, the British soldiers were scared for their lives? They were scared against a bunch of people walking?
Yeah, well, that's just it.
They,
It's the argument they feared. John Adams successfully argued that they feared for their lives as a crowd surrounded them. It's the first successful case of quote unquote self defense.
yep. Which, to be fair, the mob did surround them at the Boston Massacre. It also surrounded them after they had shot several people, because that's when the mob lost it.
And the mob
But
gathered because they started attacking a 13-year-old boy.
yep. But back to India. Back to India.
The British, it just doesn't matter the
Yep.
time period. The British colonials still acted the same way.
Yeah.
With the British, it doesn't matter like where it is. It's just like they pulled out the playbook. Like, all right, yeah, now we got to move on to step 3, genocide the natives.
Yeah. And honestly, Gandhi plays the British beautifully here, because he wants the Dandi March to be highly publicized. He wants it to be known. So he decides he's going to do a very courteous thing.
Oh my God! Yes,
He's going to write Lord Irwin, the Viceroy of India, to inform the good leader of this colony of the dates on which the march will take place, its route, its intent, and its purpose. Thus creating in Lord Irwin a culture of fear that this mob of people are going to walk down to the coast and break his laws.
It's just also very funny too, because that is some level of British of custom of courteousness, where it's like, dear kind fellow, on this date and this time, me and some old chaps will be gathering to embark on a long distance march towards the sea to violate Section 3 of the Salt Act.
We do this because we find you to be a most ignominious cad, sir.
And he's just sitting there, ignominious? What on earth does that mean?
God damn it, the hermit has got better handwriting than me.
Yeah, he's struggling to read it because it's in very beautiful fine cursive.
He's like on the phone with the prime minister, going, "You won't believe it! The senators they're walking! They're walking!
So he
Send
wrote you
the
a letter.
Navy!"
He wrote you a letter to tell you he was going to walk to the beach.
Sounds like Gandhi likes long walks on the beach.
My dearest Viceroy, I dream of the days in which we could walk to the beach together.
It's the Pina Colada song, but just in the freaking letter.
Right, yeah.
Is this what happens when he hangs around a poet?
No, the poet comes later. The poet has no chill. The poet is the avenging angel. Because fun fact, Gandhi does team up with some very important people to pull off this movement, including a premier poet and India's first proper prime minister. But to start off his march, he takes a dozen people with him, and he just leaves. He just leaves Sabarmati Ashram and starts walking. Every day, he would come to a village, and he would stop the march, and he would walk into the middle of the village and spend the rest of the day ranting about how wrong the British were and how they had no right to rule anything.
Oh my God, he went on a tour of a tour to each town and did a whistle tour stop.
Yeah, the nice way of saying it is preach the ills of the salt tax. The more accurate term would perhaps be anti-government rant.
I'm also just curious too, with how much of a grassroots organization this was, just how effective that news spread through just standard cultural networks. Because people in that village went to their neighbors, to their cousins, like, Hey, did you hear about this whole salt tax thing?
Yep. Oh,
Well, as they say in Letterkenny, bad gas travels fast in a small town.
yeah,
Yes, exactly.
yep. And he focuses specifically on how the salt tax disproportionately targets poor people who can't regularly afford the salt. And he's doing this
Class warfare.
through the countryside, where most people are poor.
Class warfare. Class
Oh,
warfare.
you
Yep.
love when you mobilize the peasants.
And yep, every day when he would leave the village, a few more people were with him.
Yes. Yes.
It gets to the point where he's stopping in some towns. He's got a larger entourage than the town.
At a certain point, you know it had a snowball effect where people would just like take time off their jobs or had nothing going on and they're like, all right, yeah, I'm going to join them. Why? Do you see that party? Do you see that group? That looks like so much more fun. And then you get the nosy Nancy's that are like, I'm just going to see what they're doing. I'm just going to follow
And
along.
and
Yeah.
you get to fuck with the British government the entire time.
Yep. Now the fun fact about this is there is no head count for how many people were with Gandhi on the march.
Even better.
The estimate says there are several thousand, uh, with a cap of approximately 10,000 people.
That's a
Oh.
large force. Like, that
I'm
is
just
an
saying,
entire regiment's worth of people.
He has 2 legions worth of human beings. There, we are measuring in anything but actual numbers. 2 Roman legions.
The Romans made it to the Indus Valley? Oh my god. Hang
some of
on.
them
I
probably
need to
did.
start sending this out to my pseudoscience circles.
I mean, some merchants probably did, but other than that,
Okay, if that's not the thumbnail of Gandhi leading a Roman army, I don't know what is.
We are not a disinformation podcast. We make jokes, we make laughs, but we are not disinformation.
Yep. Anyway, on April the 6th, 1930, he arrives at the coast of the Arabian Sea, where he bends down into the turf and picks up some of the sea salt that had washed ashore and mixed with the mud and the sand and held it aloft. And everyone else went and did the same. Thereby, he had produced salt. He had acquired salt without paying a British person for it.
yeah,
Oh,
that's
no. How dare he? Salt
Yep.
without consent to the king?
Yeah.
oh god.
Now, what's fun about this is even though we've got 10,000 people on the beach just actively breaking this law for no other reason than they can, the British do not arrest anyone. They know it's happening, but they don't dare move in because there's more people here than there are British soldiers. Instead,
I think that just kind of proved, like Gandhi just ended up proving that laws are not in fact rules, but just
Suggestions.
Yep.
more just state-sponsored punishments
Yep.
that only an oppressing force can use.
Yep. Fines are legal for a price, everyone. This is not advice. This is just humor.
Oh my god. Am I gonna have to be the lawful good that's like, no, follow the laws?
I don't
You are
know.
playing a paladin
I don't know.
currently.
That's usually my job, but I've broken free of my containment.
That puts me in a really weird spot because I'm the chaotic one.
Yeah, start playing your paladin character in this stuff now. In the Historical
Yeah.
Humans podcast.
Lawless paladin. But yeah, anyway, the British did try to prevent the gathering of salt at Dandi. Because remember, our dear friend Gandhi here sent a letter to Lord Irwin, the Viceroy, saying he was going to do this. So the British lie in wait. And when they see that Gandhi is getting close, they try to smash the salt of the beach.
What?
Yeah, it's a stupid idea, and it's up there with that one Roman emperor who ordered the Romans to attack the sea.
Yeah, the war
Caligula.
on Poseidon.
I think it was Caligula.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, Caligula. Yeah, for the level of stupid that goes into this. So what they tried to do is the coastline at Dandi is a mix of salt left by receding shallow tide of the sea, and mud, that is the earth. They went around trying to stomp all the salt on this entire beach under the mud so
Naturally.
that Gandhi couldn't pick any up. Because if he can't pick up any salt, if he gets to Dandi Beach and there is no salt to gather, the salt march fails. What they forget is that Gandhi here is not afraid of dirt.
Also, the fact that, the ocean is a cyclical process. It would eventually bring in more.
Yep. But the key was to stop him on the day he goes to do it. Because if he gets there and he has to wait a day or 2 days, people are going to start moving off. And the British don't seem to realize that Gandhi can just reach down, dig through the mud a little bit, pull out a salt chunk, be perfectly fine. He's not sticking it in his mouth right now.
It's symbolic, anyways.
It's symbolic. He just needs to find a chunk and hold it up. That's all he's got to do. They misunderstand the assignment at some level here.
I think it was probably a translation error that someone didn't care to elaborate.
I do imagine some, upper management British soldier, like a lieutenant or a colonel, was like, and I say smash the salt. If they're gonna make their way there, just smash it on the beach. And just nobody underneath him in the chain of command had the balls to try and question it. Like, I don't know. The Commandant said to do so, so we might as well.
They're British. Commodore.
Commodore, sorry.
Yep.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. But fun fact about this, no.
Oh.
Yeah. The news of Gandhi's march to Dandi and its grand success spreads very quickly because 10,000 people just walk away talking about it.
I love
And
it.
That's the problem. That's the problem. People like to talk.
Yeah. In a matter of days, the populations of 2 major cities, Karachi and Bombay, which is now Mumbai, march out to their coastlines and start gathering salt and waving it in the face of the British.
I love it. Good for them.
Yep. And because of this, the Satyagraha continues for 2 more months. As
4 months?
2 more months as various people in different parts of India all get up and go and gather salt in their own little movements wherever they can, however they can, to prove that this law holds no sway over us. And honestly, during this time, Gandhi decides to go on full tour across India. He is traveling from place to place, leading little replica salt marches.
Oh my god, of course he went on a press junket afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's kind of funny though. It's like, all right, it's like Taylor Swift's Eras tour. She's just going everywhere, and now Gandhi's going everywhere. Gandhi did it first.
Yeah.
That was Gandhi's Eras tour.
Yeah. Now this is what starts the British to crack down. The fact that it doesn't stop at Dandi, that it becomes something of a real movement. So much so that they seek out and arrest Gandhi. They also, with him, they arrest a man by the name of Jawaharlal Nehru.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Nehru is going to be the first ever prime minister of an independent India.
Oh.
He's a political leader, and he's a rising political agitator at this time. And so the British are going around trying to round up all the ringleaders. They get him. They get Gandhi. They get a bunch of them. And the reason they're able to get people is because Gandhi keeps announcing his tour dates before he goes and commits the crime.
I mean, at least he's
very polite, very consistent, very demure.
Remember that first pillar of this movement, truth. We're going to tell them that we're going to do it, and they shall learn to fear us for it. And Gandhi announces that he will target the Dharasana Salt Works. Now, this is a salt mine in India where Indians mine the salt for the British, and then the British sell it back to them at 10 times the price. So,
Of course.
major salt production in India. This is like the big center. He's going to shut it down. In response to the news that leadership has been arrested for announcing this march, tens of thousands of people sign on and start publicly making their way to the salt works, to Dharasana, in order to do this on Gandhi's behalf.
Oh, so they're just continuing it.
Yeah. It gets
All
so
right,
bad.
yeah.
It gets so bad that over the course of like the last like 6 months here of the year 1930, several million people riot in protest.
Wow.
They don't attack anyone, but they just flood the streets and won't let anything happen.
Yep, that's how you do it. That is exactly. People who like complain that like, oh, you shouldn't block the streets. What the fuck is a protest good for then?
Yeah.
It's not good to stand on this fucking sidewalk. It's meant to be disruptive.
Yep. And the thing is, even with the chaos going on around them, even with leaderless without Gandhi, without Nehru, the people still find a leader to formally organize the march. 2,500 individuals fall in line behind the poet Sarojini Naidu and begin to march on Dharasana.
Ooh.
And this is where the British decide to draw their line in the sand. There will be no march on Dharasana. And so they intercept Naidu's force, shall we say, and proceed to attack them the same way you might attack an invading army.
Oh my god.
Jeez.
And thus, they just relentlessly beat some 2,500 people. And they do it all. This is their one key mistake. The British might have gotten away with it if they hadn't done so in front of an American.
Oh, shit.
Because it turns out somewhere in these 2,500 people is the American journalist Webb Miller,
American journalism strikes again.
who proceeds to get it published in every news, his firsthand account of what happened, published in every newspaper imaginable.
I love the American perpetual hatred of British colonialism and the propensity of an American to just go, yeah, I'm going to publish this everywhere. This was insane.
You kidding me? This was
witnesses."
great.
Yeah. This put,
Like, man, all these people just non-violently just started walking, and it got the British all cut their knickers in their in a twist, and now they're just like, was it? Yeah, that's what they call it anywhere, knickers, right?
yeah, knickers.
Like Knickerbocker or something like that.
I don't know. I don't speak
Knickers.
Brit. I speak English.
Yeah.
Or no, or is that what they call their shorts?
That's like their underwear.
Who knows?
Okay.
Anyways, yes, but they basically got the British all riled up and hot and bothered over this topic, and it was brilliant.
Yeah, massive international outcry. I imagine there were such headlines as France named reasonable, and who do the Brits think they are? The Belgians?
Oh God, I forgot about the Belgian Congo for a minute there.
Or the war hasn't broken out yet, but the French in Nigeria.
Yep.
But this was around the time too, for other reference, that the British really started losing a lot of control over their other colonies, to the point where at this time India was their last real bastion of colonialization, so they were able to focus a lot more in on it. And despite the empire shrinking massively, they still tried to think that it was massive and tried to extract roughly the same amount of money out of their constituents. Like recently to this time period, they lost control in the Middle East and in Egypt. You know, post World War One, a lot of colonies broke away and gained freedom. That was kind of the whole basis of the war.
Yeah. And the thing too is India is a point of pride for British imperialism. The uh, king or queen of the United Kingdom is known as the Emperor or Empress of India. It was considered the crown jewel of the empire.
Not just
And
the crown
just
jewel; they provided the crown jewel.
yeah, yeah.
Guys,
It was the
guys,
crown jewel of the
most people don't
empire. It
remember.
also is where the crown jewels came from.
Yeah, because turns out the Taj Mahal used to be bedazzled.
Oh yeah. They'll never stop an Englishman with a chisel.
Nope. Nothing. There's nothing more determined than a British man and what he wants.
Yeah.
And
British
especially when it comes
sailors-
to looting.
Yeah, British sailors eat sea biscuits so they can pry the jewels out of their casing with their teeth alone if they have to. That's your fun fake fact for the day.
We're not
like
a
when-
disinformation podcast.
And
Also,
yet here we go.
carrots are so good for your eyes. It let the British see the German Messerschmitts from miles away.
You mean that wasn't just the radar systems that they developed and installed on the shoreline?
That just sounds like propaganda to me.
I like the German theory that it's carrots more.
Yeah, no, I like that one too.
That's actually
That's
why
kinda
it
funny.
spread, though, was they needed a cover story to hide their radar technology.
It's also a half truth because yeah, carrots like vitamin A provide vitamin A, and it's supposed to be like good for eye development, but also like there's like we'll just tell them we eat a bunch of fucking carrots.
I used to eat a ton of carrots to the point where my skin started turning slightly orange because I'm nearly blind. So I thought, hey, if I ate enough carrots, it would reverse the process.
Wasn't there like an old fucking child's book or whatever that was about like, oh, if you eat too much of one thing, that's what will happen? Did you turn orange?
No,
Did you
but
eat so many carrots you turned orange too?
carrots can actually have a dye in your skin. They can start dyeing your skin if you
It
eat too many.
usually only really happens to children who are like 2, but like in rare cases it does happen.
Welcome to being pale.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My Irish tan.
Yeah. Anyway, by the end of 1930, some 60,000 people are in jail
Oh,
for
man.
allegedly or actually having participated in a salt march.
They stole salt. They stole salt. They must be jailed for it.
Yep, 60,000 arrests.
Yikes.
Things are not looking good for the British here. They've got major optics issues.
That's also a good way to tell, though, that your movement is successful if they're really overreacting.
Yeah.
So, so much so that Gandhi is actually able to negotiate his own release from prison while in prison.
Oh damn.
Power
Yep.
move.
In January of 1931, Gandhi gets himself released with some concessions from Lord Irwin. Yep. Concession number 1 is that the Satyagraha and Lord Irwin agree to come to a truce.
Like it's a
marches-
fucking war. Oh my god.
Yep. The British could only frame this in the terms of a battlefield.
Naturally.
Yep.
Fucking course they can only do that.
The salt marches will stop, and in return, the people arrested for it will be released.
Okay, good concession. Good
Yep.
concession.
This truce was formalized on March 5th, 1931, with the signing of the Gandhi-Irwin Pact.
Oh my god.
They had to sign a formal pact like two nations at the end of a war in order for the British to actually believe that Gandhi would stop.
What the fuck?
You'd love to see it. That shows that they feared this man.
They
Yep.
really thought he was like a fucking military leader.
Yep.
Well, you got to also imagine from the British side, he's a secular man that's not a very big build. He was a small man by a lot of means and held just this immense reverence and power. You can't contend with that because no matter what you do, it will backfire on you when someone is so beloved.
Yeah, there's a little dude peering up at you through giant glasses, and you're gonna bully him. This will not end well for you.
Or
But
maybe Irwin just played a lot, like too much Civ.
yeah,
No, I think Gandhi's just cracked at Civ. I think that's what
yeah.
this
And
is. Gandhi
Gandhi's a,
started building his resources right off the bat.
He's
yeah,
doing like achievement hunting where he's like trying to do it through like a non-violent way.
yeah, yeah. Win the game without ever starting a war.
Exactly.
And then somehow he still gets nukes.
Yep. Gandhi also extracts another concession with this pact.
Ooh.
See, Gandhi and a couple of the other leaders like Nehru and I think Naidu and the rest of them, they all achieve invitations to the what is known as the Second Round Table Conference. This is the second of three major talks that the British government was having with itself over the question of what do we do with India now that our empire is falling apart.
Can I point out
Oh,
one key fact with this?
Yep.
Is that they were invited to the second one, right? Yes.
Yep.
There were no Indian representation at the first round table. They held the round table entirely consistent of British people talking about a British colony.
Yep.
oh,
Yeah,
who
that-
else was gonna talk about it?
That's why that was such a big to do and such a huge win, is to be able to sit at the table while these discussions are being had is already a massive improvement from the situation they had been in.
The British were like, we saw what happened with the Americans when we didn't let them have a seat at the table. Shit.
Yeah. Yeah, the British were trying to because these conferences they took place one a year from 1930 to 1932, and the British really wanted to solve the problem without allowing the people of India to have any legitimacy. Because if you allowed an Indian to speak at the table as an equal with a Brit on matters of British governance, you are giving this independence movement all the legitimacy it needs to start a rebellion.
Oh yeah, of course.
And Gandhi had just proven that we don't need to start a rebellion to rebel against you. We do not need guns to fight you and win. So they let him have the seats.
I mean,
Um,
he made it. He makes a good point.
It's such a strong arm tactic in such a backhanded way that I just adore it.
Yeah.
Because that's just what solidarity is. Like, you don't necessarily need to be violent to show solidarity with each other or against someone. Because a lot of times, all you need to do is just show up.
Yeah. And Gandhi gets the showing. And honestly, the people that go with him to this conference, they don't achieve anything here.
Mhm.
The three roundtable conferences are a total and abject failure. Nothing is properly decided. None of the issues are resolved. All it really convinces the British government of is the futility of trying to talk this out.
The futility of hope, the new British story.
What it does for the Indians, however, is it sets up a wonderful cast of characters whom the entire independence movement is now crystallized around.
Oh, hell yeah.
It shows that these are the men that the British will respect and fear. That these are the men who have the know-how and the pull to defend your rights and to advocate for your freedom. These people who were all leaders of varying degrees and varying factions are now all this one unified front. He basically forms the Avengers of India.
Oh, no. Hell yeah.
And there is nothing British Loki can do about it.
Suck it, Tom Hiddleston.
Indians assemble.
Yep. And the biggest thing about all of this is, all of that comes out of the Dandi March. And it proves to the world that in the 20th century, nonviolence actually beats violent response.
I will say, and this is very much a positive towards Gandhi and the timing of this, that this came at a time where the First World War is so fresh on people's minds, and that was one of the bloodiest conflicts in history, just by the amount of unnecessary bloodshed and loss of life, and just the sheer numbers that everyone felt that. Even the British felt that. So to engage in another bloody conflict so soon after really traumatized a lot of people and really prevented a lot more violence. And that's also a lot of times why in the Second World War you saw countries hesitate to respond or hesitate to join in just out of sheer fear of the pure bloodshed. I mean, that was Chamberlain's whole concessions.
I mean, also like it was considered the war to end
And all
all
wars.
wars.
Yeah, the Great
Like
War.
people really genuinely believed, like you couldn't compare any other. Like we've seen the worst of humanity in a conflict. Why would you ever want to like do that again? Like, why would you want to enable people to feel the need to like violently rebel in a war like that?
Until Germany just wanted to one up everyone.
Yeah, no, like the
Yeah.
world is, reeling pretty heavily. War has been proven more devastating than ever. The US stock market has just crashed. Um,
For the first time.
yeah,
Not the first, but probably
uh,
the
yeah, this
largest
is year
drop.
one. Yeah, it's
So
year
far.
one of the Great Depression. So like the world in varying ways is reeling. You've either been completely war torn, or your population was sent to die in that war, or you're just an economic ruin because what the hell?
Because all your buyers are in war torn nations, and all the people you used to sell to are now dead.
Yeah, usually that's kind of what ends up happening, isn't it?
So the world's pretty miserable in 1930,
Can't
and
imagine why.
Gandhi just proved that his face is stronger than punching, and the British don't know what to do about that.
I, I
Have you
will
like tried punching harder?
I will say to Gandhi's unfortunate, like the way history worked out is he started gaining all this momentum and planting the seeds in the early 1930s. By the end of the decade, the world's focus had shifted to the events unfolding in Europe at the time, to the point where Indian independence kind of went on a back burner until after the war had already ended. And I correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they gained full independence till what, 1949?
I
Like,
think it was 1947
Yeah, they
with the agreement because one of the issues between with Indian independence was the question of Palestine or not Palestine,
yeah
Pakistan.
yeah. So yeah,
Because
if
remember,
you
there Bangladesh used to be East Pakistan because there was an extremely high amount of Muslim population. Like there was a really high Muslim population in the area. I
yeah
think I'm pretty
yeah, they
sure.
separated the Muslim and the Hindi populations. Muslims went to East and West Pakistan, and
yeah
the
so
Even
yeah,
though
there's
no one agreed, like a million,
no
like millions of people literally woke up in a new country that they didn't even know was happening.
yeah no yeah the yeah India is given independence in 1947. However, from 1947 to 1950, there's this border war that goes on where just the British didn't understand how to draw borders for countries. They didn't understand what was going on. They were all these questions of how much are we giving up to whom and all that. And so there's a lot of chaos. New administrations have to be formed, elections have to be held, all that. Gandhi does live to see his nation granted independence, but he does not live long enough to see the dust settle. He is assassinated in 1948,
mm,
less than a full year after he sees that his movement has succeeded, at least in name.
See, I didn't even know he was assassinated.
Oh yeah, no, he was assassinated in his own home. He was
Yep.
meditating out in the garden, and someone ran up and shot him in the stomach.
Yep. Yeah.
Jesus fucking
His
Christ.
yeah, he was assassinated while he was just in New Delhi. Um, I believe he was on. I believe the official story is he was on his way to prayer. A group of people had gathered to witness him because he was that much of a monumental figure. A man jumped from the crowd and just opened fire on him.
Yeah. I think it
It's
was in his own home, though. I think he had an area in his home that he would go meditate.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That
So,
poor guy.
at least at the end, they did hit their final goal, but it was a rough go at things, and it was a very interesting way to show a peaceful revolution could occur and could actually happen.
yeah.
But cool.
But yeah, no gun. Yep, yep. Dandi March right there. Just scared the hell out of the British by walking to the beach.
And little did they realize that would be the death blow for the British Empire. Wasn't even a blow at all. It was just a mere suggestion.
Yep. Yep.
Sometimes that's all it takes.
But yeah, I think that's probably a great point for us to wrap up today's podcast. If you guys enjoyed, let us know in the comments down below. Let us know what you thought of the new format. And we will see you guys in the next video.